Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Alien versus Predator Galaxy podcast, the original Alien and Predator podcast. I'm regular host Aaron Percival, and today I'm flying solo. Adam's not available for this one, mostly because he doesn't want to spoil the end of the book for himself. But we do have a question.
An irregular host?
Oh, hang on then. Hang on, since they've chirped him. Alex White, everybody. One of the best people I know, and easily one of the alien gods as far as I'm concerned at the minute when it comes to just cracking out good quality good quality stories that's up there with Isolation and the films. That is my British slang coming through there.
It's all good. It's all good. Listen, all I want to do is be as good as Stephanie Perry. Okay?
Okay, yes, because as far as I'm concerned, you're up there with her, because my top 5 goes Music of the Spears, which was Yvonne Navarro.
Yes.
Berserker, which is Stephanie Perry. Cold Forge, obviously, Alex. Ziegler with Phalanx. And number 5 is this beautiful motherfucker.
Oh, 2 of them.
2 in the top 5.
2 in the top 5.
Even better, out of all of Titans so far, so out of Cold Forge, out of Phalanx, good fucking cover art for once.
Yes. Oh my God, it was so beautiful. When I saw it, I gasped.
Oh, no.
It's wonderful. Titan only sent me 6 of them.
Of all the things to just complain at Titan for, it is generally always stop letting your interns make the covers for these books. So yes,
I really feel for those graphic designers. I really do. I don't know what circumstances created them. I've professionally managed graphic designers for a long time, so I'm always like, I'm not sure where those covers came from, but I'm glad they stopped.
Well, I hope it keeps going, because I think Infiltrator was better, but it's still...
Yeah. It kind of looks like a little action figure.
It looks like NECA's albino alien.
Yeah, it does. It does.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah, it's the arm, I think. But that's okay, because I'm stoked as hell for Fireteam. Oh my God, I can't wait to play that game. Have you played it?
Me too. Oh, trying to weasel my way into a gameplay demo of it, but not there yet.
Oh, they need to. Yeah, they need to. Matt Higson needs to hook you up or whatever.
Hopefully something comes of that one.
Yeah.
I'm not all the way through Infiltrator yet, but we're not here to talk. Well, I suppose Infiltrator might come up a little bit. Have you read it?
I hear that old Weston tied me in some.
Yes, he certainly did. I've got to that point in it, actually, literally earlier. So that's Phalanx and Infiltrator that's now tied into the Cold Forge.
Yeah, we've got the Plagiaris Prepotens era.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty excited about that one. Yeah, all I wanted to do was graffiti the alien fandom.
Make your mark.
That's right.
You certainly have. So, if anybody hasn't guessed, Alex White's here today to talk about their latest novel, Into Charybdis, sequel. Well, okay. Spoilers. Before we get too far, okay. Before we get in there, spoilers right away. Ghost sequel to The Cold Forge.
That's right.
And I didn't even know that when we were reading the Evolving Draft, the first draft.
That was so fun to know that the whole time, and just like when I sent you all those pages, I couldn't sleep. I was like, here it is. Did it work?
Yeah, when I figured it out, I was just like, holy shit. Alex, what is this? And then everybody else is like, if you only just figured it out, you slow bastard. Like, yes.
That was so fun. And I really, I wanted to bring back something from the Cold Forge, but it's like, there's only one survivor. Also, spoilers.
Yeah.
You know, and so like I didn't necessarily, what, with only one survivor, and she's like doesn't seem to have a really positive outlook, and so that was why I was like, okay, well, everybody kept asking for a sequel, but I felt like a direct sequel didn't really work for me.
And you'd said, when we spoke after the Cold Forge came out, you said to me, I have no interest in continuing Blue's story.
Right.
So,
Well, because I felt like it was potentially distasteful.
how so?
Well, she's an interesting character, and she serves a vital purpose to the story of the Cold Forge. I mean, she's a queer disabled woman of color who's dealing with a really disturbing set of circumstances that have caused her to be, sort of bad a little bit. and but also, she's a really sympathetic character, and her plight is really close to my heart. And so when it's like I don't want to just make a sequel about her that doesn't resonate with the same amount of emotional depth as the original.
Okay,
And
so it was more about finding a way to continue it meaningfully.
Right.
Right.
Right. Because if I had, well, and and even back then, you'd said something that was a dead giveaway for a good way to go about it. I have every faith that I could have arrived there myself eventually, but I do love that you were kind of, I was expecting her to mutate, and I was like, oh, that's a great idea. That would totally work, and then she doesn't get to be the main character anymore. Because it's really hard to, if I was like, yeah, now she's the main character, we're going to do the entire book from the perspective of this mutated alien. Like, you could, but part of the thing about Alien that makes it so beautiful is how much mystery there is in it. And the more time that you spend in their head, and I was actually even reluctant to have that one chapter from her perspective post-mutation, because the more that you have in that character's head, the more or the less mysterious the alien becomes. How do they see? Is it in the visible light spectrum, the infrared spectrum? What's safe to hide from them? Well, we don't nail that down because writers need different things at different times, right?
Yeah, true.
They just saw him. Sorry, it was bad.
It's all right. If you get under a desk, though, you're fine. If anything's taught me that, is we can hide from aliens under a desk playing round around the table.
Oh my God. In the same way, that comment really hit me in the same way as in Isolation, where you're first under the desk and you hear the weight of the alien. The first time you ever hear it run, that really stuck with me. I made it right into the Cold Forge.
Yeah, I think I picked up on that one.
Yeah, you did. You did. A bunch of people commented. They're like, "You must have played Alien Isolation," because it's true. I mean, that was I love that bong 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 stab.
I think it's brilliant because it's a way. It's the most authentic Alien experience, I think.
Oh my God!
In terms of direct, you are directly in there. Your body is reacting the same way that Lambert's or the Dallas's would have. So it's beneficial as a way, I think, for writers, because what's the saying, right? What you know. With playing Isolation, you physically know what it's like to be in that situation.
It was a hell of a training course, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I know, it was so good. And the other thing that I liked about Isolation was it gave a lot of permission to me with regard to like the tech level. One of the things that had never set well with me was the anachronism of Prometheus. How you're like, well, it's a science vessel. I mean, you can explain it away.
It doesn't make him any more satisfying.
Yeah, but I mean, we all know that the difference is just 30 years. That's the difference. It's not that one's a science vessel and one's not. You don't expect me to believe that some of you have holograms and the others of you can barely afford CRTs. I don't think so.
Well, I suppose it depends how scummy and cheap the companies do get in the future, because So much of I think I said this to Eric, one of our other co-hosts, and I said it again to Adam the other day, because he's only just, you know, he's only just got around to reading The Cold Forge and Charybdis.
Good for him.
Charybdis?
Charybdis.
Charybdis, yeah. I'm terrible
Charybdis.
with pronunciation.
Oh, it's fine. I knew I was going to get that when I named it that. It's fine.
So he's only just got around to reading it, and he's been saying
Uh-huh.
things to me, and I'm like, yeah, but this is actually quite realistic. This have you worked for a big evil company before? Because this is entirely my experience
Yeah.
with the way things work. It's like, it seems so outlandish until you're in there.
Yeah.
In the real world.
There are a lot of work stories that have been kind of disassembled and reassembled into the Alien books. That is probably the place where I most directly complain about my coworkers.
I remember you saying from the first book, you were like, I hope people don't read this and come to me and realize who's based on who.
Yeah, though I will tell you, there's one guy in Into Charybdis, Noah. I'd love it if that guy knew. Like, yeah, come forward, say that's you. Yeah, yeah. Oh, I know, and it really is. It really is like that. I mean, I always tell people, like, whenever somebody's like, you know, how do you find relevance in Alien? I'm like, what are you talking about? We live there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, look at any global supply chain, literally any global supply chain, and you will find something akin to Weyland-Yutani. Yeah, and it's like, hey, do you like major brands of chocolate? It's cool. They're picked by slave kids. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like, and it's like, unless you see something that says they're not using slavery, they won't guarantee it. And it's like, that's most chocolate companies. There's most of them. I think Cadbury's in them. You know, like, you have to go look it up. It's an ever-changing list, sadly. But that is our capitalist hellscape that, you know, I actively participate in. Don't get me wrong.
Unfortunately.
But, you know, it's true though that these sorts of concerns are very real, very, very real. I mean, to me, the entire shape of my adult life has been determined by insurance. You know, I have chronic pain and 2 disabled members of my family. I have to pick my jobs based on insurance because of the American economy. You know, I could have been a novelist full time years ago. You know, but that's not the way that my country's laid out. My country's laid out to favor Weyland-Yutani, who I work for. That's how you get insurance. You know, so yeah.
So yeah, it seems outlandish, but it is not.
No, I agree.
So I wanted to just talk a little bit about the reaction to Cold Forge and how that actually played into, you know, into the new book. You know, when you were on the podcast last, you know, you did speak about that panel at Dragon Con and the whole death threat situation. And so, you know, you went into this book a little blind, I think, found out some stories, and then, you know,
yeah, and then they were like, yeah, you get death threats, and I was like, oh my God, that's terrifying, right?
And I think the situation played out a lot more differently than what you were expecting.
Yeah, everybody was like super nice.
You've become quite the revered figure. It must be said. So, you know, what's it been like going from that expectation to that reaction, especially when it played such a huge role in book 2 getting made?
Well, I mean, first of all, I love the Alien fandom. Unabashedly, y'all are great. Y'all treat me so well, and like, I love it. And at the same time, you know, yeah, we got some bad eggs. The death threats came.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, so I mean, not for Cold Forge,
Okay,
and not for Into Charybdis. It was for being a popular author who likes to wear makeup. You know, I got a little, you know, I got a couple of them, but you know what I do? I log them and I ignore them, and you know, well, there's more that I do, but we can leave that aside. I don't leave them alone. But anyway, you know, the thing is, like, of course, that's terrifying, but at the same time, like, Alien is a fairly courageous franchise in terms of what it has to say. And it's funny because it's owned by Wayland Yutani, right? Like, um, and you kind of have to go like, yeah, but it's still our anthem. It's still our song, like, yeah, you guys, sure, you make all your money off of us, but at the end of the day, it's our message that we want to take home. And that's what makes it so special. Because I mean, otherwise, I always joke like, oh, I got to get back to work on my face fucking fan fiction. Like, because when you look at it, it's sort of really silly and sort of not at all silly. So anyway, I love Alien. Let's talk about it some more.
So let's talk a little about how the story came to be. Unlike the Cold Forge, it wasn't built on subverting expectations as such. Like the first one was. It was this wholly original setup and world building.
Oh, okay, yeah. Because I was like, not subverting expectations.
Well,
did you get to the halfway point?
Yes, I did. you know what I mean. You pick up the Cold Forge and it sounds like Rogue, it sounds like Labyrinth, but it's fucking not.
Yeah.
The whole setup for Charybdis is nothing like Alien. It's I couldn't pick a comic out and go, yeah, it sounds like this one.
Oh, nice.
So where did the foundations come from for the book?
Sure.
Where did you start with this concept?
Well, there are a couple of different places. First of all, I love I loved the sequence in Resurrection underwater as a kid. That really did stick with me. I thought it was really cool, and I was like, I want aliens in water. Because at first Charybdis was like it wasn't called Charybdis. Whenever I'm imagining an alien story, it basically starts out on LV-426 or a spaceship. I don't, it's not on purpose, but it's just like they're on a planet. It's probably shitty. Like, I'm sure it's windy, probably smoky. There's a bunch of rocks everywhere.
Weird formations, maybe some that look like dicks. Who knows?
Right. Nailed it. Right. And that's how much you have to think about that when you're coming up with plots. If you don't want to, it doesn't really matter that much. And that's actually one of the points of the Cold Forge is like, yeah, it's the same setting as every setting. Like it's a commodified setting, if I could go as far as saying that. And so that's why, as you say, it subverts expectations. But in this case, it was like, I think Steve was like, why don't we set it somewhere that they really haven't seen before? And I was like, okay, stop talking. Because like, yes, I agree, stop talking. I always feel that way because I always want my ideas to be
yours,
mine. Yeah, I know it's terrible, but it's true. I'm totally arrogant that way. But I also don't want people to feel like I'm like riding their coattails. Hopefully when you read Into Charybdis, you weren't like, geez, I basically wrote this whole book for you. Like, I hope you were like, wow, I was hoping to see this.
Well, I mean, it's like I said in my review, it felt like you were writing it for me.
Well, y'all were the beta readers. You were the focused group. So in a lot of ways, I was.
But it wasn't like we were sat there going, you know what would be cool?
No, true. Yeah, well.
So, when I got to all the bits, although, obviously we'll get on to a bit later that you did basically steal from me.
Oh, no. It's true.
But
I bet.
In general, I said it felt like you were just sat there picking my brain without me knowing and picking elements that I wanted. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the experiment. That's why I maintain a focus group. In my day job, I do a lot of this sort of thing as well. And so, if I show you something, if I ask you what you want and then I show you what you wanted, then that's just me stealing your ideas. Right? That's all I do. And if I don't ask you what you want, but I find out who you are and I give you what you want without you knowing, then I have something that I can be sure is successful later with other people. And so I had, the focus group was a fairly diverse group of people. Lots of different backgrounds, lots of different thoughts. But we were talking about where Charybdis came from. So first of all, a water world was like my first thought. And by the way, I was like, it's a water world with a data center and there's water pouring into the data center and all this other stuff. I finished Charybdis and then I went back and watched Rogue One. And that's Scarif.
Yeah, I wouldn't have even thought that. I've already seen Rogue One twice, but I always liked it.
I know, and I was watching it and I was looking at Scarif and I was like, oof. It's very much like Charybdis.
I've not seen anybody make that comparison, so I think you're safe.
Well, I tried to keep it. I tried to go like when I was going back through. I was like, make sure this is different. You know, really make it distinct. Really make it your own, and focus on the geology. And really, the idea for Charybdis didn't come. I didn't think it came from Rogue One. Geez, I had seen it before writing the book, so maybe like I don't know. I'm always afraid of that, right? I'm afraid that I'm going to write some really good song and I'm going to perform it, and then people are going to be like, Alex, if you change the lyrics, that's like Nirvana, or something. Like, you didn't write that. You're an idiot.
A bit subconsciousness.
I know. I'm always terrified of that. But no, where it came from was all these like I'm afraid of like the ring. Like I hate like these oubliettes, these wells that you can fall into, stuff like that. It's terrifying. When I was a kid, there was this EC comic that they re-released all the Tales from the Crypt EC comics, and so those were my first two comic books for Tales from the Crypt. And I was a little kid, and there was one in particular about sinkholes. And it was about how like a sinkhole like opened up and like swallowed this guy, and like and it led to like an underground river. So like his body was just like swept through the reservoir. He died, of course, immediately. and no one would ever recover him. And I was like, that's terrible. Well, all these years later, of course, that came back. And the same with The Ring. I mean, that really spoke to me in a lot of ways because I'd already been exposed to this one story, and it just kept coming back and kept coming back. I mean, there's nothing more frightening to me than the idea of just being kind of washed into nothing. Which is weird because it's like if I was blown out in an airlock, I'd be like, oh, okay. I guess that's a cooler way to die than washed into nothing. So
that's interesting because that plays into Cameron quite early on as well, doesn't it? So
it does. Well, and with other characters later. Yes. Guess how many characters end up down there? Like most of them. And so that created a lot of thematic tension. So that's where the theme came from. The American contractors came from. So I've been working in building integrations for like 4 years. So I actually did a lot of the same types of. Or I'm an expert in the field that the Macallan integrations people are experts in. And one thing that I did was I flew all over to do contextual inquiries and learn about how smart cities are made, and specifically smart buildings, because buildings are like they're more akin to like running a nuclear power plant than they are to like running a generator. Does that make sense?
No, it's fine. Go on.
A skyscraper has an AC unit, a chiller, a furnace, a boiler, all these super duper complicated pieces of equipment that like if they broke, depending on how they break, there could be very serious safety ramifications. And when you're running millions and millions of pounds of air through a building every single day, that's actually an engineering marvel. And so the systems that are designed to find out about these systems are really sophisticated. And so like all of these different climate control systems all through your building, all your lighting grid, everything electrical in your building, all your data points, they're all producing data. They're all IoT devices, right? And so all that stuff comes together at a single central point of controllability or observability. And that's what SiteSys does, by the way. So what Cameron and Shai are working together to do in the beginning of the book is make sure that door lock appears in our central console for when Dorian later uses it to kill everyone, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like somebody had to link the door lock to the console somehow. And that process is called commissioning.
Yes, you said Dorian.
I did.
You did.
I know. I'm just saying, like, he used a commissioned system to kill a bunch of people. You know, he was controlling the door locks from a central network. You can't do that without somebody linking them in. And so I thought, what, you know,
That wasn't in Cold Forge, was it?
it was in Cold Forge.
The door stuff. Oh yeah.
There was also door stuff. Yeah,
Yes,
he was
with
at
the lights as well. Yeah.
he was at Juno.
Yeah, I
And
remember now.
and like later, you know how you like use the lighting grid to like guide the aliens around? You know, like later in Into Charybdis. I was like, that's a stupid idea.
I'm gonna take the piss out of my last book.
I love doing that. And it's just because, you know, at least we can be like, no, you're wrong. It would work.
Yeah, we've
But
seen this.
it worked. It's fine. And also, you know, Dorian so effectively used the concepts that I was learning, because I had just started that job when I wrote Cold Forge, that I was worried about being repetitive. And so I wanted to make sure that, like, when they controlled the colony systems to defend themselves later, seal themselves off, move themselves around, move the aliens around, that kind of stuff, that it wasn't derivative of Cold Forge. But the people that I met on these contextual inquiries, they're roughnecks, right? They're not like, I mean, they're engineers sometimes, but they're covered in concrete dust and polo. You know, they'll have like a rough polo, you know, khakis, and they're, you know, and they're in these construction sites.
A bit of Brett and Parker.
Right. And I don't get that reference, actually. I'm gonna be honest, but I'm gonna let you. Oh, Brett and Parker. Brett.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. I heard Brant Parker, and I was like, who's that? Brett and Parker. Exactly. And what I kind of took away from this is that, and of course I grew up in the South, and I'm from here, and I live here in the American South, and you know, rednecks, they can fix anything. It's not going to work forever. It's not going to work for very long, even. But they can fix anything, and I like that can-do kind of attitude, and I wanted to show a different side of them than maybe was traditionally shown, because I think that, you know, the xenophobia that you see kind of early on in Charybdis is a bit of a red herring. It's not about how the American contractors are a problem. I mean, it sort of is. Mary's a little bit of a problem, for example, but most of the time, it's like, oh, these people could have gotten along. They could have figured it out. Yeah.
If it weren't for such and such, you know.
Right. Yeah, and Iran was just a likely choice. That's where that part came from. It was like, yeah, America always has problems with Iran. Our countries never get along.
Yeah. So speaking of that one, then, because Adam did actually ask me, even though we couldn't be on, to ask you about the Iranian situation.
Oh, the situation.
Well, Iranian topic, I don't know.
All right.
So he asked, one of the things that I found interesting was the culture of the data storage facilities and its ties to the Iranian government. Also the geopolitical tensions present. Did you do a good deal of research to assist you in how you wanted to illustrate the customs and personalities of the colonists and that clash?
Tons. Hours and hours and hours of consuming cinema, of looking at books, looking at, you know, I hired consultants, okay, who both have master's degrees in poetry and English. You know, one of them is like a cultural consultant for like national theater companies for, you know, Persian and Iranian affairs. And so, and they're both, by the way, thanked in the book, and they make brief appearances as the journalists in an email exchange at one part. But, you know, it was such a sensitive topic, but it was such an obvious choice. And no matter who I chose to be a potential adversary to America, there's always going to be more to the story than just they're against America, so they're bad. And so I was always like, I need to handle this as sensitively as possible. I want to make sure that somebody who reads this book does not go away with the message of, Alex doesn't like Iranians. I don't, you know, I've got no love for, you know, a dictatorship, sure. I didn't like my last one here in America. You know, so I get it. I'm not gonna, you know, don't blame me for Trump, and I won't blame you for that guy, and we can all be friends. And that was a big part of it, though, is I wanted to kind of illustrate, like, ever since 9/11, there's been a huge amount of Islamophobia, especially in my country and especially in my region of my country. And I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it. There are people on all sides of every conflict. There are normal people who live in the war.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to recognize that. Because yeah, sometimes there are tough things that need to be done as a country, and other times we're just being used. And we need to make sure that we know which ones are which. And that's why Into Charybdis is the shape it is because it's like I want to make sure that you understand that these are living civilians who deserve your sympathy and your compassion. They're not Iranians. I mean, they are, but I don't want them to be othered to you. I want you to read it, and I don't want you to go like, oh, this is Iran rendered palatable for white people. Like, I want you to discover things that you like about it. And I want people who are familiar with the culture to say, oh, I love that dish. Or, oh, yeah, my grandma acts like that. Or, again, that's why I was like working really hard with these consultants and I did everything they said, let me tell you. So
did you end up having to change much from their input or anything?
Not a terrible amount because I was really exhaustive with my research, but there were a couple of things that they really improved for me and that they made me aware of some situations that maybe they faced that I didn't know because I'm not Iranian.
Yeah.
And so that was really helpful. And again, if you're going to do something that's that sensitive, especially do it right. Don't play around and pay your consultants. Oh my God. And if you don't have money, write them into the book.
Payment in kind.
That's right. I mean, would you rather have like what, $200 or that? Like.
Yeah.
I think my cultural consultants actually got $650 a piece, which is the traditional kind of industry going rate. So if you when you do hire people, I mean, it is important to hire them for what they're worth.
Mm-hmm. So dropping back a little bit, because me and you, we don't do interviews, we do conversations, so I'm all over the bloody place.
I know it.
In terms of questions. So Blue. Now, that transformation was a goddamn jaw drop for me. Not because it turned out you'd robbed me, but just because.
That's right, fucker.
Just because it's something I've always fucking wanted to see. And I personally had been toying with the concept in a little fan-made thing. When I got there, I went, fuck this, and started anew. That was fine.
So, and I'll tell you that I was really, I mean, I don't know what you meant when you said it too, because I mean, obviously Ripley 8 is an alien human hybrid.
Yeah.
And that was why I was like, because when my initial reaction to that, I think was the same as most people's, which is like, what? No. Kind of like an alien human hybrid's stupid. But, Ripley 8 was on screen already. And there are a number of other ones, I think, right?
We had Eloise in the comics, who was an android alien hybrid thing.
Right.
But again, she was, because I liked the concept so much.
Yeah.
She's one I really liked, even if it was the foundations were a little bit silly. But, Ripley 8 as well, I find her hugely interesting because of her identity crisis.
Yeah.
This conflict. And again, it's something I love in Blue in this. Because I think it also plays back to a little bit of her gender identity crisis in the first one.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole android situation,
right?
How she feels.
Crisis. I think the crisis is an HR crisis.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I get what you mean.
Yeah, I always think of turmoil kind of stuff as crisis.
Well, and she is discovering a lot about herself in Cold Forge, and some in Into Charybdis. I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right. One of the things I wanted to make sure that I did distinctly, though, is I didn't like that Ripley 8 was like, and it looks like Sigourney Weaver. And I was like, well, but why? Like, that's not Promethean. That doesn't remind me of Mary Shelley. And that's kind of like I wanted to see. First of all, the genetic concept behind Ripley 8 drives me up a wall. It's exhausting. And I don't know if I've said this in in interviews with you before, but it was something that I thought was a good idea when I was a kid, and then I saw the movie and I was like,
you wrote a letter to Fox pitching the idea.
yeah, I don't even know if I got the right studio. Maybe I sent it to some confused mailroom at Paramount. Like, you know, but either way, I thought it was a good idea and I was wrong. And and Ripley 8's a good idea, but not as imagined. To me. Yeah, look, y'all resurrectionists can enjoy yourselves. No shade.
No need to dance around me. You know, I like the concept. I don't necessarily like the film, but I'm the kind of person that always generally focuses on the things that I like about something, even if I don't necessarily like the package.
Right. Well, and so the shape of Blue's job forces her, well, really them, further and further away from their humanity, but at the same time causes them to discover who they really are. And so it's really interesting to kind of see, to have written that transformation. And you know, I don't know how I mean, do we want to like talk about the ending at all, or
Oh,
like
God, it's spoilers, we've already warned.
Yeah. I mean, like when they just die at the end, I mean, of exhaustion and trauma, it's like I'm making a point there. Right? It's not sometimes you just want to curl up.
Yep. Felt that many a times.
Yeah.
Even
And
at work.
I know.
Underneath the desk has looked mighty appealing to me quite a lot.
I know, and like sometimes you have that instinct and you're like, how is this healthy? How is this life? Why do we live like this? And that's what Alien is about, right? That's why I love it so much. You know. So anyway, yeah, so I really wanted to have her sort of get what she wanted, but not in the way that she wanted. So
okay. Yeah, that's an interesting angle to take it at.
And I think that she probably thinks of herself as somewhat beautiful, or they think of themselves as somewhat beautiful.
Well, that's the beauty of, you know, the deep lore kind of way you took it, because another part of the reason that I like the concept of a hybrid is because it's so H.R. Giger. You know, it is Lee, it is Syl,
right?
You know,
right.
and it is Alien. You know.
Oh, originally I was like, oh, I could have her change her name to Lee after they become, you know, and then I was like, I heard that H.R. Giger's like super litigious, so
yeah, you'd have been hearing from Leslie something. I forget his agent's name. You'd have been hearing from him.
Yeah, I don't want to. I mean, I do. I want to talk to him about H.R. Giger, but I don't want to be threatened.
It's such a funny situation because his style is so ingrained, rightfully fucking so, yeah.
Right.
In the style, and it's the style as well. It's his biomechanical styling that's formed such a important part of why Alien as a design looks so brilliant. But they can't go and take these other similarly styled stuff. Like in my head, Syl is an engineer weapon. I don't care what Fox or MGM says, but in my head, Syl is an engineer weapon that's just transmitted out there for intelligent species to find and then fuck themselves literally over with. I think that plays into it so right.
I know, and it does. Everything feels like it's of a singular mythology, and that's and that temptation is really there. And I did some soul searching, and I was like, yeah, but that's really not. It's not owned by Fox, and truthfully, it would be wrong of me to try and induct it. Right? That's his property. Why should I try and be like, no, we also own that? You know. He didn't give his life to Alien.
No, true.
So, yeah. No, I think it's great though. I mean, I definitely was inspired.
But you did get to revisit Giger with Blue anyway, because it was
right.
Michelle Pfeiffer alien.
That's yeah. So I went really deep, and I was like, okay, what does Fox own though? And it was like, oh, they own these concept drawings.
Even to the point of the head plates, because I thought that was fucking brilliant. You know, because that was something he'd pitched, and it didn't make it into the film at all. But yeah, there's this mood sort of communication thing. I thought it was
Yeah,
brilliant that you just dug the lore up. I was like, okay, Alex, seriously, get out my fucking brain, because this is exactly the kind of stuff that I dig so much.
yeah. I really did try to go pretty deep on a lot of the references, and it also was cool because when I looked at that plate design, I was like, why would it have a brain that moves as the wind blows the grass? Right. That was the Giger quote. Why does it have that? That's weird. What is it trying to do? And then I thought about dancing bees. Right. There are all kinds of bugs that communicate essentially through semaphore. Right. There are those spiders that this is their mating dance is really
Yeah.
yeah. Bees are the same way, right? They dance, they vibrate their thoraces, I think, to make noises. And so, it really seemed to be kind of in line with O'Bannon's fear of insects. Um, so yeah, that's where it really kind of coalesced for me. So it's like, oh, Blue could use this as like an intimidation system, or and so you notice for most of the book, anytime they encounter a drone, the drone's like,
Yeah.
until it gets damaged.
Yeah.
And then the
Yeah.
drone's like, oh, you're imperfect. Fuck you.
Was so Blue and their intent with the Queen's Code.
Mm.
Did they inject it wanting to mutate into an alien, or was she hoping it had just been a working cure at that point?
No, I think they expected what happened. Because, well, I mean, there's the rat, right? Basically, it was, oh no, the company got what they wanted. They're gonna kill me.
Hmm.
You
And
know.
that description of her in that room, of them in that room, was just absolutely harrowing as well.
Mm.
Literally, just a head kept alive with machines. It's like, good fucking god.
Yeah. Well, and that's how they ended the Cold Forge too, right? Like, and
Yeah.
that was why whenever everybody was like, "Let's have a sequel," I'm like, "There's
How?
a head on the wall." Well, what
We
is it?
can't
It's
have
like
them
having,
running around getting smashed to pieces again, can you?
you know what though? Let's go ahead and let's get Commander Pike's later career,
Hmm.
right? Like, I mean, part of the point of Cold Forge was that an unlikely character could survive, and it was based on J.C. Hutchins's advice of find the character least equipped to deal with the situation, and that's your horror main character. And I was like, oh yeah, that's brilliant. So
Hmm.
yeah, and I mean, and Blue's inspired really heavily by a terminally ill child that I know. So that was also another reason why it was like Blue's story has to be great. I can't settle for. I was actually somewhat disappointed at how harshly people judged Blue for needing a cure. It was like,
Hmm.
oh well, it was all in self-interest, and it's like, so what? Blue hasn't been allowed to live, but at the same time, I mean, collaborating with unknown actors did get everybody killed. So,
Don't you think that's kind of funny in an interesting way? One of the I like it in that everybody is grey.
Mm,
Nobody is simple. There is no simple answer to anybody's motivations or personality or behavior. You mentioned Mary earlier.
mhm.
She's a lovely old woman who's racist. There's more to her than one thing, and it was one of the things I loved about Blue in the first book. Because it's like you say, yes, it's self-interest, it's self-serving, but it also benefits everybody.
Right.
But if people are zoning in on the self-serving aspect of it, what do you think that says about everybody? Because everybody's self-serving, and if you're focusing in on that point as a reason to dislike that person, what's that say about you?
I know. It does kind of like, oh, I'm mad at Blue for daring to try and have what I have. I mean, and it's so, yeah, it's definitely, I mean, that's written pretty largely into both of these books. And one thing I always love pointing out about Cold Forge is Dorian's correct about almost everything he says. Like, if everybody listened to Dorian, they'd all probably be alive.
But Dorian didn't read his escape packet. He'd have been alive if he did.
I know, he really should have paid more
They
attention.
should have paid attention.
I love that. I love that because I have done so many OPSEC briefings, and I'm like, I hope I don't almost die in here because
I'm not paying any attention.
I don't remember the combination that you just said. Yeah. So,
I fucking love the realism. It pulls me in. It really does. So much of what I read in your books is just like, yep, I get this. I believe this.
You know, my favorite thing about Mary is, so, you know, she starts out the book and she's like, oh, I'm afraid to go down there because I won't be getting any bacon and they're not Christian. And, she says all these horrible things. And then at the end of the book, of course, we start to kind of understand. I think she comes around and is not going to be so judgmental anymore, right? And so she's like, so I think that Mary has a different relationship with her Iranian comrades after this. Like her and Cameron probably get along. However, when she meets an emancipated android, she's like, we got to get out of here. I can't trust that thing. And she immediately is like, nope.
Yep.
I don't like this slave having a mind of its own. And she didn't take care of Marcus at all. They didn't like mourn him.
No, they did not take care of him. Poor guy.
And because the only person who would have mourned him wasn't there at the time. She was dead at the time.
I know, because you fucking killed her. You're just halfway through a fucking book and you just offed her.
That was so satisfying, by the way, because long time ago, many years ago, I was at a sleepover in high school and I got into a debate with another kid, and I was like, I think you could trick everybody into thinking that somebody's the main character and then kill them halfway through. And he's like, no, everybody would quit reading. And so and I haven't called him to say that I was right because we're not really talking very much anymore. But this is one of those things where I was like, wow, like, I'm going to bring that back and I'm going to fucking do it. I always wanted to do it. I believed it could be done.
Yeah. Have you seen sort of reaction to that big drop?
Yeah, people text me a lot. And what's great is I try to give you like fallbacks though. Like I spend a lot of time saying like, okay, we're going to get to know Shy and Kamran. I'm just kidding. Kamran's dead. Okay. Now we're going to get to know Shy and Becker. I'm just kidding. Shy's dead. And so I try to give you like a full part with the person that we're going to kill. And that way, and hopefully by the end of the book, you'll recognize like, oh, if somebody is a POV character, then that means that one of the two POV characters is dead at the end of this at the end of this part. And so each part belongs to two people. And I was really hoping, one of the things that didn't land that I was hoping would land, and this just speaks to the fact I like meta story. Okay, so like I solve murder mysteries really easily. I go, who's the least likely candidate in the third act? That's it. I don't need evidence. I don't have to know anything. I'm not intelligent. It's just who's the least likely candidate in the third act. And it's like, oh, if they were going to do, if the butler is the surprise, but that would be cliche now, then it's not the butler, right? It's whoever I'm the most comfortable with. There you go. Right. And so I look at the structure of stories and I look at like, where am I in the story? Okay, this tells me the sort of thing that I'm going to see right now. And so in the fourth part, when Duncan becomes one of the prospective characters, I would have been horrified, because I would have been like, there's no fucking way you're gonna let Duncan survive. Like, but I mean, I don't know that you would do. I don't, I was trying to get people to be like, expect me to do something really horrible, because it's so hard to make somebody fear for the main character of an Alien book. Ripley doesn't die. I mean,
Yeah.
unless she dies heroically at the end, at which point she served her plot purpose, so she didn't die in a way that was meaningful to the story. Well, in a different way than was meaningful to the story. She's not collateral damage of the book. And I wanted to be like, you don't know who the main character is. And actually, the more that you accept kind of the white default, right? The more that you're like, oh, it's it's going to be like a classic MCU movie, right? Like the early days, where like this is obviously the main character. She's got romantic tension with this guy, and she's she's a savior character, right? She likes to jump in and save people all the time, and so that's valid and that's good. And it's like, no, that wasn't the set of skills that was needed. I'm sorry, but her bullshit mission work in Africa that she probably also did in high school also doesn't matter. You think that she's the main character because I try to make her a lot like the kind of classic homegrown, and
Good girls.
it's an absolute misdirection. And on top of it, it's Alien, right? And so it's like, oh, final girl,
The woman has to survive. Yeah.
Right. And so it's a chance to kind of say like, you don't know, and I'm going to make sure you don't know.
Was that your experiment with this book the same way that Hating Lucy was in the first one?
Mm-hmm. Well, this wasn't. I mean, it's not an experiment; it's the thrust of the book.
Well,
but yeah, I wanted to make sure that you couldn't tell. Now, the experiment for this one was, I don't know if you remember, I used to ask you guys what gear you thought the book was in. Maybe you weren't in that one. Everybody kind of drops in and out, but it was kind of how, where do you think you are in the book? What gear do you think it's in? And people always thought they were further along and that it was going faster than it was. And that was the experiment, constantly getting
pacing
that
wise.
feedback. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because if I love when people are like, oh shit, stuff just got real. Shy lost $20 million. I'm like, you think that's when shit got real? And so I try to do these things that felt big enough to be major plot points to, again, misdirect you and kind of try and say like, okay, this is the crisis. You feel like you understand the crisis. I'm just kidding. It's evolving.
Yeah. Turn it up a bit more on the imaginary plot dial.
Oh, I know. And almost nothing changed from the outline, by the way. Like what I submitted to Titan is almost verbatim what I wrote. And I don't usually do that.
Okay.
But what I submitted to Titan was probably about 40 pages. I really...
Is that typical for an outline?
No, it's like 7 pages is normal.
Oh, God.
But the thing is,
this must have been in your head really well then, all along.
Well, because there are a bunch of really difficult dimensions, right? Okay, so there's the geopolitical dimension. There's the fact that I'm sequeling the Cold Forge, which has an intimidating reputation for me. Like, because like, if I did write a third book for Alien, everybody's gonna be like, this one's gonna be so good. And I'm like, what if it's not though? Like, I hope so. I don't know. But there was that. There was all kinds of, there were environmental challenges to overcome. Because I wanted to make sure that this was a realistic geological environment. I wanted to make sure that Blue got the right treatment that I thought that and nuance that character deserved. And because I was like, I did them wrong, like I didn't get the message across. And part of it is also that I see a lot, obviously I'm not Black and I don't suffer like that. And so like I don't want to claim credit for that kind of stuff. But as far as their gender identity, and the way that they live with that inside of a corporation, and the confusion that the world causes because they don't want to accept that. That's all really personal to me, and that's part of the reason why I killed that character. It's because it was like, I can't have y'all touching her. I'm sorry.
Not trusting anybody else to
Not a
do
chance.
them justice. Yeah.
Not a chance. I'm sorry. That's I mean, like I said, dealing with the medical discrimination and dealing with the queerness, I was like, I really want to make sure that this goes in the way I want it. And I don't want to hear that somebody like brought Blue around for a rockin' action sequence, you know, like
You have left a little door open, though. I mean, either side. I mean, because there's all the stuff that they were up to on the Black Star as well.
Mm-hmm. So that was something else that I really wanted to do, was usher in hopefully a new era of Alien by dropping just a ton of everything, right? Anybody can hook in anywhere you want. It's open source, right? There's a war now. So there's about 1 billion war stories. There's some survivors from this. They're not the characters that I would let you touch. You know, like, or I'll let you touch the survivors because, you know, Kamran and Mary, you know, they went through a lot. There's still Father and the Black Star in possession of potentially the source sample that Blue was looking for. You know, we don't know what they brought onto the ship.
When when they were looking for,
I know,
pure.
and by the way, listeners, the reason why we keep having trouble is because it changed over the course of the drafts. I decided that the coworkers were too accepting. That you know, because Kamran, I don't know, you remember the original draft? Kamran was like, I guess they, and then Blue's like, yes, you know, do what I say, basically. And I changed that because I was like, that doesn't seem as realistic.
And I think, I mean, I do it. I still do it. You know, I trip up over.
That's different,
I mean,
though.
I've done,
Different.
you know.
You're trying. That's way different.
Yeah.
So, anyway, yeah, but those kinds of issues are in the background of this book, and they're there on purpose, and they have really strong signals for people who are affected that way. People who are affected that way have written to me and told me about it, and that makes me feel good because that's who I'm trying to talk to. Hey, I know sometimes you feel like a monster and nobody wants to accept you for who you are, and it has nothing to do with anything except the way you were born. But I see you. And that was why I was like, I really hate that Blue was the villain, sort of, still in Cold Forge.
Yeah. I never saw them as the villain. It was part of what made the whole setup compelling to me, was because, again, it's not straightforward, and I love that. I love that complexity of the books and the world.
Oh my god, you're gonna like this Deep Space Nine book.
Oh, I have no doubt.
Yeah,
it's going to be one that gets picked up because it's got your fucking name on it as well.
I hope so. That's why I'm doing multiple tie-ins. I mean, I love Star Trek and I love Alien. But one of the things I'm trying to do is I'm trying to demonstrate, like, you all should be reading my books. Please read my books. I want a career. I want to create an Alien of my own. And I don't know what that's going to be, but it's going to be something that I wrote, hopefully.
Oh, I can't wait. I still have the third Scavenger left to read. I've read the first two. I haven't got around to the third one yet. Yeah. But I brought Every Mountain.
It's Salvagers
before we started, by the way.
Yes. Yes, and the Salvagers starts with a big ship at the edge of the universe for anybody who's interested. Yeah, and that one, actually, I'm really proud of that one because it's the best reviewed of the three, and it's the first time I've ended a trilogy before. And I'd never written a trilogy before. And so it was terrifying because you see all these creators, all these shows that you know, let's just say they bomb in maybe the 8th season, for instance.
Indeed. I wonder what that could possibly be in reference to.
You know, it's who knows? Who knows? So many examples. But and so I was like, what if that's me? Like, oh my god. And so I rewrote like half of that book. That's the longest book too. Like, Into Charybdis is 120,000 words. The Worst of All Possible Worlds is 165,000 words. So it's a full third longer than Into Charybdis. But it does close up all the plot holes, and like sets up the characters in an interesting way while still ending the series. Like it's and it takes you to all the places in the series that you're not supposed to go. Right? There's LV223, so to speak. Yeah, well, I mean, I've got my own version of that in the Salvagers. There's Origin, right? And I wanted to make sure that it wasn't disappointing, because there were plenty of like the Hunt for Earth kind of stories that sucked when they got there, right? They got there and it was
that last season of Battlestar.
I know, I know, and I have nothing but respect for that show, but
until the last season.
I think everybody feels that way, except the creators probably.
Although, when did All Along the Watchtower come into it? Was that season 4 or 5? Because I absolutely fucking love that rendition. Anyway,
yeah, that was really interesting. Yeah, I was I liked that whole. I mean, there was a lot of cool stuff there. It was just it was also really weird to be like, this is a fantasy setting, but Bob Dylan exists in it.
Yes. It's brilliant. Maybe that's genetic memory passed all the way up to Bob Dylan.
Oh yes. Everybody has a little Bob Dylan in them in the Battlestar universe. Well, only Cylons.
Yes. Oh
man.
Oh, you know what? I've completely forgot where I was going.
I'm gonna tie it together in my third book, Tangled Up in Blue.
No, I think that all delved off something else. What Blue was searching for. So,
yes.
They were looking for the pure, where Plagiarius came from. Was the intent that it be exactly what was inside those ampules, or was this another sort of, maybe that also came from something else kind of thing?
Right. I can let that be whatever. I mean, that really does need to be up to who tells the story in the future. But in my mind, what Blue was looking for was probably in those ampules.
All right.
And so we have this corrupt strain that's rolling around making XX21s. But when you look at the engineers, I mean, they used this thing to seed all life on Earth. So, there are other iterations of it. And
so you're thinking more the one at the start then? Is that?
Yeah, I think if you found those things in the alien universe, and that was and I had heard some lore, and I don't know how legit this is because I didn't go look it up, but I had heard some lore that the engineers had like a good version of it from back in the day that they used to make their miracles, but that it had become corrupt over time. That's okay. I love thinking that they had a good version and David was just like screwed around with it until it was like tamper resistant. And he made some horrific monster, and then it couldn't mutate anymore beyond that very much. And so Blue has hit a dead end and must find something that is more mutable.
Okay.
So that was my thinking. But again, it doesn't have to be like that. Somebody could come along and have a great story to tell in another way.
How much of... So again, one of the things that I fucking love... I'd kiss your ass so much. One of the things that I really love as well that you do is...
Not regarding the kill to cocoon ratio. I read that review. No, you didn't like that part.
Well, I remember having this discussion with you when we were...
I bet I forgot to make any edits on that part. That's
I was like... So, one of the things that I love that you do is plots clipping along. It's brilliant. I'm dragged in. You drop a nugget that on its own right is just fucking holy shit, that's awesome. And then you're just on again.
Mm-hmm.
We don't suffer for it, but the brain's going.
Right.
How? So it's like things like this, you know, what Blue was searching for, or the thing that
Or why
got
do
to
all
me.
androids become obsessed with the xenomorph? Why? I don't know.
And what else? There was the amphitheater, you know,
Oh
where
yeah.
they found the gun. How much of that do you actually have in here when you're doing it, even if it's not on the page? You know, even if it's there for somebody else to play with, you know, do you have a backstory for all these little nuggets that you
Oh yeah.
drop?
Yeah,
So,
always.
what was the deal with the amphitheater then, by the way?
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, that's got to be some kind of sacred site to the engineers. And so, you know, if that's where their last uncorrupted sample might be, for example, then that's a holy place.
Revered. Yeah.
You know, they built statuary in there. You don't build giant heads into the wall just out of like a sense of like zhuzhing up the place, you know, like you know, and so yeah, I thought that this was like a sort of a mystical location, but in that super science way that the engineers have. And one of the things, like, so what the amphitheater was, I'm happy to say, is it is a sacred location where this one thing was housed. And then the aliens came and, you know,
Defiled it.
defiled, yeah, just crapped all over it, humped the colonists to the wall, as Duncan likes to say. Um, and and so, you know, that, but it might have been beautiful at a time. It might have been interesting, and I wanted to base it on that Giger painting in a lot of ways. You know, Isle of the Dead, which
Yeah.
was in and of itself a cover, and so I was like, perfect. Giger's estate can't come after me because then Balkler's estate needs to come after him.
And then they used that in Covenant as well, the original one.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, and that's good. I love it. I think it's, you know, I think it's kind of cool, the idea that engineers maybe prefer that kind of structure. Here's a piece that didn't make it in that I really wanted to make it in, but I really couldn't figure out a way that characters would know this. So, volcanoes that are silica volcanoes. Volcanoes have different silica contents.
You're on about the weird pits of hell, kind of.
Actually, no. This is even better. Okay, so volcanoes have different silica contents, and with less silica in there, they make sort of pointy volcanoes. Okay, like Pompeii has less silica. And because what silica is it's like a fluid, it's a flux. So it's a heat conductive flux. And so it sort of melts into the cracks of the rock and then causes the rock to conduct heat better so that it melts as well. And so silica makes everything more liquid and more plasticine. And so the kinds of things that you think of when you think of a silica volcano, you think of like, it doesn't look like a big peak. It looks like a round mound with a little on the top, just like the engineer storehouses. And I was like, it's a high silica content volcano formation atoll, you know, and then it's just like, I can't figure out anything else to put in the book. Like, at what point is a character going to say, oh, well, I happen to be looking at a scan of the island, and also I know about this thing that almost no one in the galaxy has ever heard of. It just didn't click. You know, you have to assume that nobody in Alien has met the alien before. Or if they have, that it was classified, or, you know, that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Or they turn out to be raging psychopaths.
Right.
So talking about raging psychopaths, and you mentioning Duncan not long ago.
Oh yes.
So that is the trope that Charybdis flipped. You know, it is your hero and it is your goddamn fucking villain. And I think what's immensely interesting is you obviously loved writing her, even though you fucking hate what she's based upon. So talk to me a little bit, or talk to the listeners, I guess. I know the story, but
Yeah.
talk to the listeners about where your treatment of the colonial marines in this came from.
Okay, well, first of all, so I've worked with soldiers for much of my career. I care deeply about soldiers. And so when I was going to do this book, I was like, I have to make sure that the veteran perspective is correctly represented. But at the same time, there definitely needs to be somebody who's bad. And we have a couple of different war criminals who were pardoned over the course of me writing this. And that happened pretty regularly in the Trump administration. And it's hard to watch your soldier friends go through seeing the honor of their service diminished, because people will look at the army and they'll go, oh, you guys are the ones that committed those horrible atrocities, right? And then that oh no, that person, we arrested that person and we sent them to jail. No, that person's a commentator on Fox News now. They got famous because of it. So, no. And so, and because of the nature of libel cases and things like that, I'll let you figure out who they are. But these people are traitors in my mind. And they're damaging to their fellow soldiers. They endanger their fellow soldiers with their behavior. When you can't reliably conduct an operation where you need to deliver food because your idiot lieutenant went and shot at a civilian for no reason, that's not okay. And when your base gets blown up because they killed the wrong person, that's not okay. And so these people have to be stopped. And we didn't do that as a country. And I know that there's a lot more to it, blah, blah, blah. Look it up yourself. But, that's why I wanted to put it in there. And when I consulted, though, or when I got consultants, I had people from the Marine Corps, from the Army. I had war crimes investigators, right? People who dealt with some really dark stuff, rape investigations, murder investigations. And talk to them about the kinds of things that might be required to pull something like this off. A remarkably few number of people are co-conspirators in the Midnighters. It's actually less than half the unit. It's the command half, and when it's like, Aaron, take the shit to the dropship. And you're like, shouldn't I go check on the colonists? It's like, Aaron, I said take the shit to the dropship. What are you going to do? No, Captain, I think there's something wrong. No, because you don't know. And you have no evidence that she's done anything illegal. And then every time you do, she's like, I have a legal tasking order. Nobody asks for it. They're all scared of her. And by the way, I've known a lot of people, who, just like I have lots of soldier friends, I've had some soldier enemies. And, and sometimes you meet people who are like that, who love to bully, who love to look right through you. I love this. My favorite scene to write for Duncan is the one where she's talking to Shy in the command center, right when they arrive, and Shy's like, you don't know what the hell you're getting into. All of you are a bunch of fucking amateurs, all this other stuff, just because Shy is thinking what we're thinking. We all saw Aliens. We know how this goes. And so that scene where Duncan responds to her in a way that is as humiliating as possible, while still enabling Shy to feel like she's fighting so that it can feel worse when she wins. I've had people behave that way around me, and it sucks. And those people are usually kind of toxic. Like, if somebody acts like that, I guarantee you they're worse in other parts of their lives. Anyway, Duncan is absolutely based on some real people that I've met. But, it's interesting because, sometimes you meet somebody and they're great, and you get to befriend them, and you find out about their amazing service. And then other times you meet somebody and they look right through you and they're mean and there's something else, and then you find out that maybe they've shot hundreds of people in the course of their service. And it's like, I don't know how to square the fact that you don't seem to see me as a human being with the fact that you've killed a lot of them. But like I said, I believe in the armed services. I believe in, you know, my soldier coworkers. So yeah, that's where it came from.
Yeah. It's
And,
again,
oh, sorry. Whenever somebody says you're going after the Colonial Marines, I always say Becker's the Colonial Marines.
Yeah. Have you seen that kind of response?
No, only
Okay.
once, and it was actually something that was Clara brought it up from the forums. She said that, you know, that there were some doubters in that regard, and I was like, yeah, well, then they don't know who the Colonial Marines actually are, because Becker is the one that's following the law, and everything that he's doing makes him the commanding officer.
It's really interesting twist as well in the way that you expect your alien story to go. You know, the corporate people are the bad guys. You know, the Iranians should be the bad guys. They're a corporation. They're
well, yeah, if you saw True
Middle
Lies,
Eastern,
right?
And then you get the heroes show
Right.
up and yeah, be war criminals.
Oh, sorry, I also forgot the number one thing that kept happening while I was writing to Into Charybdis was white people kept calling the police on people of color in the United States, trying to get them hurt or arrested. There were like three different news stories. Huh? What?
The barbecue lady.
Oh, that's like one of like 20 or 30 or hundreds probably, if we take the whole thing in aggregate, you know. But it was such a common news story to see at the time, and I was just like, here it is, the version, because Noah calls the cops.
Yeah.
They're like, don't call the cops, Noah. And he's like, Shy wouldn't fuck me. I'm gonna call the police. Oh, I know.
So unusual careers is one of your things. I think we can say this when it comes to character stuff.
Yeah.
And Shy, unless I'm completely misremembering, Shy seems to have had a bit of your previous career in terms of UX design.
Current career. Yeah. No, I'm.
Is he still doing?
Oh yes. Yeah.
Almost
every author has a day job. I'm sad to say. We're getting there though. Thank you, fans. We're one step at a time.
Keep buying them. Let Alex just write books all the time.
Please, yeah, I do. I have to buy. I have to write like 2 or 3 books a year in order to continue making career progress. So please buy them.
So how much of Shy's sat there frustrated about Noah doing her job? Yeah, did that all come from experience?
I can't say which company. I'm not going to tell you anybody's name, but we had a guy who, he would do that. He would send stuff to a woman who worked for me, essentially fait accompli, right? And he'd say, "Oh, here's the PowerPoint. Make that exactly." And he would go through and he would have put his ideas all over every single ticket. And what that did was that denied this person their agency in the design process. It made turned them into what I call a fancy mouse. That's where somebody comes up and clicks you where they want you to go, right? And click, click, click. Do Photoshop for me, right? That's no good. And you can't have that kind of undignified relationship as a designer. And so, yeah, I called this guy out for that particular behavior, because, and I'm over here like, go ahead, say it was you, feel free, but it's sexist. He didn't do that to the men who worked for me, and and he just marched all over this person because she was shy, literally. And
is that where that came from?
No, but that's funny. No, it came from the Cheyenne dropship.
I thought that was a cool little moment as well, and then her just being like, and
Yeah, I like when she goes up to the APC and she goes, "Is this one named after me as well?" And I'm just like, "Shut up, please, shut up, stop talking." I loved writing her. Towards the middle of the book, she was such a privilege to write. I hated to kill her off. I did because like she was super fun when she stopped giving a shit. Like when she's just like,
Just
"Fuck all
unfiltered.
you,
Yeah.
you suck, Jerry. This is all stupid. You guys are all gonna die." You know, kind of. It was like she'd seen a horror movie before.
So when Cold Forge was first announced, one of the first pieces of interaction that me and you had were you saying, if I liked Labyrinth, I was going to like the Cold Forge.
Yes.
Of course. That was also his level similarities, it's all part of the charm of it. But one of the things that I noticed with Into Charybdis was it had some imagery that I thought was pretty evocative of Labyrinth. Well,
Okay.
issue 0 specifically, and that was with the prey suits and Blue ripping off heads. Was that deliberate?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, they were in there and they had their fitter injection, right, or whatever it was called, and their big dog handling suits, and it was like that wasn't ever gonna work. You people are idiots. But yeah, I liked that. And I mean, it's hard not to remember those kinds of scenes when you're working on that. And the prey suits were based on the reactive armor of the M1 Abrams, which I've always been interested in, reactive armor. But I don't actually know that it's a great idea. It seems like personal reactive armor could potentially be very, very dangerous.
When you had some situations where it didn't quite work out to the advantage.
There was when I was a kid, they had this toy. It's just the world's worst toy, and like they were basically little concrete balls coated in gunpowder. Okay, and you'd click them together, and they'd make a little spark. Okay, it's like cap gunpowder, like flash powder. Okay, and so you click them together, and they make a little spark, and it made the tiniest, shittiest little spark. But every time Blue would like knock them against each other and like stuff like that, I kept thinking, oh, they're just banging those little balls together.
So I thought that sounded brilliant.
Yeah, that was a good time.
So, as is tradition on this podcast, and when we get to chat to people, our community, I always ask our community members, is there anything you'd like me to ask this cool person on your guys' account? And well, it saves me having to do all the questions. But so we do have I'm talking as if I've got Adam here with me as well. I do have a couple of questions from our guys and girls. So first up is there's a couple actually, from one of our long-standing members and Xenopedia editor, Who the Fuck. So he asks, was it Alex's intention from the start to go full aliens with this after the more alien style of the first book?
Yes, very much. And I'm glad that this person picked up on that, because that's exactly right. I wanted the very first book, I was like, I want this to have a very alien kind of feel. I want it to be really similar to Ridley Scott's style. And this one, I wanted to kind of open up the gasoline a little bit more and let it rip a bit. You know what I mean? And so yeah, that's why the more Cameron-esque action sequences, because I wanted to say like, okay, the first one was kind of my answer to Aliens. The second one is really my answer to Alien. Or the first one's Alien, second one Aliens. If I were to do a third book, I guarantee you there's prison imagery all through it.
That was actually something else that one of our other members was thinking.
I'd find some way that you wouldn't expect, but it'd be Alien 3-ish somehow.
Okay. Well, in that case, Trash Queen, there you have your answer to your later question. There's a potential for a third book.
You nailed it.
And Huda also asks, and I'm wondering if you're doing this on purpose to make people ask this about your books. Where did the eggs come from? The Black Star, a queen we never saw, or egg morphing? Because there was only so many eggs, I think, mentioned on the Black Star, but you had your hundreds of colonists.
Yeah, they ate most of the colonists, though, as we've discussed.
Yeah, I suppose. Is that why you've done this? I've only got 12 eggs.
Yeah, they're like, yeah, we got 20-something eggs here. You know, I basically assumed that there was a 50 to 75% attrition because of like Duncan like starved them and riled them up a bunch, as you know. And so that was my thinking. And so Blue has been robbing these sites for a long time. How many eggs are in the Black Star's hold are not actually stated. Could be dozens, could be hundreds. That they found them. The Marines find them in the Black Star, and then when inventorying and housing the aliens, they go ahead and they gave the aliens access. Like they put the eggs in, and they were like, okay, when they get out, they're gonna know where to go. And one of the things I really liked writing about the aliens is they instinctively always know to go lower in Charybdis. You know, they were putting stuff all over everything except the holiest parts of that site, which I thought I was really surprised they let me do that actually, because I don't know if the aliens care about the engineers or not. But I like the idea that maybe they're like, oh, I don't even I don't want to screw with that.
a bit of that genetic memory again going off.
Right, like that's obviously the master. You know, like I kind of thought that, you know, maybe they would recognize that that's their creator somehow. So,
okay.
In the same way that we did.
Yeah, but we didn't respect our creator.
No, and he beat the shit out of us.
Son of fucking Guy Pearce, bless him.
Oh, poor Guy Pearce. Should have just hired an old person.
Yeah, well, that's what you get for removing your earlier scenes, I guess.
I know. They had their chance. So
Who's last question is, can you write every alien book from now on, please?
I mean, like in your heart, maybe. You know, just do what I do. Say that all the alien books end after Alien 3, right? Like it's the same thing I do for the movies, right? Like 4, that was a weird dream I had that was pretty good in some spots. Alien versus Predator is as a movie, as a book, I love Noguchi and all the other I think I'm getting that right. It's been like 20 something years.
Noguchi, yeah.
Did I get it right? Yeah. See, that's how good it is.
Michiko Noguchi, yeah.
Yeah.
Unless I'm butchering the name, because I butcher all names.
Probably the pronunciation, we're not standing by that. Neither one of us should do that. But but we got the name spelling correct, and that's what matters. But you know, like, but as a movie, that's just like it's like a bad rumor. And I saw it in the theater, but like I hated it so much. Paul Anderson, I'm sorry. Like you seem like a fun director. Like I would want to work on a Paul Anderson movie, don't get me wrong. I think that would be really fun. It's just
it depends if we're talking Event Horizon Paul Anderson, I think. It's a shame we didn't get him.
Oh, well, yeah, I know. But I mean that's lightning striking is what that is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's such an underappreciated movie. I love Event Horizon.
Mm-hmm.
It totally influenced me. I couldn't stop thinking about it.
Well, it rings the same bells as Alien. You know, if you like Alien.
I just love it's like hyperspace. Hyperspace is through hell. That's the one thing. It's just like
it's so Doom as well. It's so Doom.
I know, and and Battlefleet Gothic really kind of has a.
I don't think it has that one up.
Oh, that's the Games Workshop.
Is it the Warhammer stuff?
Yeah, yeah. The Event Horizon ship kind of reminds me of a Space Marine ship.
Okay.
With their weird like flying cathedrals. So, yeah.
So only in your heart, will Alex write all the alien books?
I'm sorry. Hey, I will tell you this. Titan, in order to make things right, I have to. If I'm working on an alien book, other opportunities get passed, right? And I don't mind that, by the way. I love writing for Alien. But at the same time, like, this book probably really needs to hit the bestseller list in order to make it continue working. And that's not likely to happen. So on the one hand, I want it to happen, but Into Charybdis wasn't really likely to happen either. And Titan dug deep and made it work. But the ball's in their court again. If this does well, they can cut me in, and because I don't get royalties. It's work for hire. It's not like Alan Dean Foster's situation where they owe him that money. They don't owe me anything ever again. They own those stories, right? Totally different contracts. And so I have to get all that money up front. And so if I underprice myself, I left a huge amount on the table. And so in order to make this work, it needs to be proven to Titan that they need to pay a lot more. And that's going to be really hard.
That's unfortunate as well, because I think
it's a bit of inside baseball.
The release has been a bit fucked up. It's took me
because of the pandemic, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't necessarily know if that's what's happened, but in the UK, it took an extra 2 months for this to finally show up.
I know.
Compared to,
but I'll tell you, I love the people that work there at Titan. I love my editor. I love the publicists. I love them all. So I tend to think that if it didn't show up on time, it's because they got screwed over.
So stuff, yeah.
Right. Yeah. I'm just glad it got out, and but it does mess up. It does mess up the timing because to hit the bestseller list, you need a lot of sales in a short period of time.
It's that early push, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. And that's usually when it's determined whether you're going to make it or not. And so if they made and kind of in the end a bestseller's worth of books, that's fine. They might come back. Who knows? I'm open to it. I'm certainly open to it. I feel like I was born here. I know how to write Alien. I love Alien.
Oh god, yeah. You have proven this time and again.
It's one of my favorite places to be. Every time it's so familiar. You just start writing in there, and you're like, I'm just gonna write some shitty work stories.
Yeah, well, yeah. It's my life plus Aliens as these books.
Oh yeah, I know, and I'm sure you as an IT person saw a bunch of good jokes in there.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bunch of UX jokes in there, of course. But yeah, Shy and I have the same job.
I am kind of worried now if you are going to do an Alien 3-esque thing with prisoners, where you're going to be pulling this from. Although, I can offer my experiences there.
Better not. Did you work in a prison?
I'm IT in a prison.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Oh, yeah, man.
I've got some stories.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I think we can definitely consult. When Steve and Titan have a check for me.
Okay. So, guys, memes at the ready again.
Please buy the books before you harass the staff. Please. Please tell them that you love it. And don't
picture with a good comment and then memes.
Oh, yes. They love that. Social engagement. And let me tell you, you tag my publisher, you're doing me a big favor. Anytime somebody tags the publisher and says hey, Titan Books, at Titan Books, I love Into Charybdis and all this other stuff, that is a vote to get a third book. And it's worth a lot more than voting for it for the Hugos or the Nebulas or any of that stuff. So.
You know what to do, guys and girls.
That's right. Tell Titan you like it if you like it.
And that's actually everything. So just before I do let you run off, though, is there anything that you'd like to say that I just haven't given you the chance to talk about?
I want to say how grateful I am to everybody for, for going along with Cold Forge and Into Charybdis, because I know that I'm doing things that are weird and subversive on purpose, and I just I assume that you've already seen the movies and you're immune to all that stuff. And so it's really nice that there's been such a great response from the fan community, because I didn't expect that. And I don't know how Star Trek is going to go. I'm not going to sit here and assume that just because the Alien fandom is full of a bunch of really nice people, that Star Trek is full of a bunch of really nice people, because I know some people who write for Star Wars and they don't they say that fandom can be rough. So, but
I've
Most.
seen some unpleasant Star Trek people as well, which always
Oh yes.
disappoints me because it's
Right.
Star Trek.
It's
Yeah,
supposed to be about acceptance.
I know, I know.
I
And
was.
what better characters for you to write as well than Dax?
Oh my god, I know. I'm so excited. I love Dax. I finished writing it recently, so like I've been rereading it. And she's so great. She's so like cool and powerful as a person. She's a really strong presence. And you know, it's Jedzia Dax. I'm sorry, Esri. Um I feel bad because Nicole DeBoer came on my show a long time ago. And she was so nice to us, and I'm like, yeah, but I didn't write about your Dax. I'm sorry. You're not my favorite.
Well,
It's
I
not
mean
her fault. She didn't write the show.
that was a whole bum deal, weren't it? Anyway.
Oh, I know. I don't know why. I don't know why they would make that change. And I've heard some rumors that I don't like, but
Mm.
I don't. I don't know why. I don't know why. And by the way, don't quote me on that. I have no knowledge of these things.
It's a whole. You can Google all this online if you're interested
Yeah.
in Star Trek and that story.
Yeah.
But
Watch What We Left Behind.
yes, yeah, that was really good. She got
Mhm.
very emotional in that one. That was an interesting doc.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway,
I'm
have we
totally.
mentioned Alex is white in a Star Trek book? I can't remember.
Yes.
Have we said it explicitly?
So this is something that really had driven me a little bit crazy about the Dax backstory. Okay. In the episode Equilibrium, right, we find out that Duran Dax exists. And
The murderer one.
the murderer one.
Yeah.
Right. So Jedzia Dax has all these previous hosts, and one of them murdered some people and they covered it up. Okay. And that's a cool backstory. And it's really interesting because it's something that we need to reckon with as people. You know, when somebody says, like, hey, your grandfather committed an atrocity, you need to be like, oh, that's bad. I should read about that. You know, like I need to know what I can do to right this wrong now. And so it's great to be able to face those kinds of things, but like a lot of people have trouble doing that. And so Duran was such an interesting allegory because, you know, here she has inherited sin. And this isn't the first time that she's dealt with that, by the way. In the first season, Curzon, her previous host, goes on trial for murder. And they're like, we're trying to try the current host for the crimes of the previous host because symbionts believe that, you know, Jadzia feels like she is Curzon Dax. And so she stands trial. And so twice now, Jadzia has kind of been called to the mat for murder. And it's really interesting because in Equilibrium, she spends the last third of the episode unconscious while her male coworkers solve the mystery. And I was like, that's really boring. She's the main character of the freaking episode.
Mm-hmm.
So there's more to the story. And it really works pretty well, I think. And it re-lenses it all. So like it all works with the series, but what if something slightly different happened than what we feel like happened? And so there's a lot to it. It's really fun. We got, you know, there's a lot of Worf, there's a lot of Kira, a lot of Dr. Bashir. So
Garrick, have we got some good Garrick stuff going off?
I did not get room for Garrick. I'm sorry.
He's Andrew Robinson's going to be at a convention near me soon. I don't tend to go for Star Trek stuff, but I'm thinking of going just
Garrick. And it was hard. It was hard because there are some times when like Dr. Bashir, you know, because he used to love Jadzia, so like there are times when he's like kind of moony over her, and she's just like, man, he really needs somebody who's like more orderly and more, you know, like she's basically describing Garrick, you know, like because they had such good chemistry, they were so cute together.
Mm-hmm.
But I love how the producers were like, we chickened out.
Yeah,
like they admitted it.
Yeah,
that's good. They should admit it, you know, like, and that way I can work on that, right? I can, and I, you know, I'd hate to take away. I don't know if I could write Garrick knowing that Una McCormick exists. She's like the number one Garrick super fan. She's also a Star Trek writer.
Yeah. I was wondering, why do I recognize that name?
Yeah. I couldn't write Garrick. She's so
fair enough.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
this is good. Yeah, y'all pre-order it. Star Trek Deep Space Nine Revenant. So.
Yep. And of course, Alex's other stuff.
Yes, please, yeah. Especially things that get
Salvage's
royalties
trilogy.
on.
Yeah.
Salvagers, yes, definitely salvagers.
Have we got anything coming out after Star Trek to look forward?
We do. Unfortunately, it doesn't have a name yet. I had
Untitled
a name.
Alex White project.
I know. I had a name. It was a working title. It's a trilogy though that's coming out from Orbit. So the same people that did the Salvagers trilogy, and so it's going to be these big books, and it's like it's giant robots plus rock and roll and jazz, and it's like really bizarre.
I was gonna go, Alex, give me the crazy, race car driver and a magician chase a spaceship pitch. There we go. Robots and jazz.
The original code name was Jazz and Giant Robots, which as an acronym is Jaeger. Jagr.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's really cool, and it's got a lot of like AI and kind of hive mind stuff going on, and it's really trippy, but at the same time it's very much a pandemic book. And in that it's this like wonderful, freeing, futuristic fantasy where we go everywhere and we have all the wonderful interactions that we want to have face to face and that kind of stuff. But it also deals with a lot of the isolation and difficulty of the pandemic. And so it was weird to have this like high flying space opera, but it's kind of depressing in places.
Was that an intentionally topical thing, or did that just happen?
No, it just happened. I mean, we lost all of our disability services when the pandemic hit, because the people who would come to the house to help are, vectors.
Yeah.
And yeah, whenever people are like talking about like, what would you do in the apocalypse? I'm always like, we'd get left behind and die. And let me tell you, nothing proved I was righter about the Cold Forge than the pandemic. They abandoned us. And the whole thing about the Cold Forge is like, they wouldn't rescue Blue if they had the chance. Because what's the point, right? Oh, they're not going to live that long. And when people make those kinds of distinctions, it's just bigotry. Yeah. So anyway, that's a cheery note.
That was that was a note to end towards.
Yeah, but it's a big part of what gives the books their heart and soul. So
Indeed.
You wanted to know, there it is.
Right. Well, thank you, Alex.
Thanks for having me.
Last one of everybody to have you on, because it took me so long to get the book, but we got there.
I know. At least you got to read it early.
True. But yeah, to me, I've not read a book until I've got these dead plants in front of me and I'm tactily turning them.
I have one question for you.
Shoot.
No one has ever written a book targeting my tastes specifically. What was that experience like for you to be like sort of professionally catered at?
It was fucking mad.
Yeah.
It was so exciting, so weird, and so satisfying, because I'm metaphorically turning the pages as I'm reading this first draft, but so many times, I'd have to pause and be like, holy crap. This is just like, I remember leaving notes as I'm going, going along going, this is awesome. I cannot wait to find out where this goes. Like the black star showing up and it being covered in resin. I was like, okay, yep, I want more, please. Because, it wasn't the direction you went with it, but like one of the things that I always thought about was the idea of perhaps the hive itself is intelligent, and maybe the aliens could have their own spaceship.
Oh, that's based on a pitch. That was a pitch that I wanted to do. Not that they had their own spaceship, but that they were a neural network that got smarter the more of them that there were. And I pitched that originally to Titan, in 2015, and I was like, oh, please, please, and they wouldn't go for it. They because it nails down too much of the biology, and it's too easily
It's too
contradicted.
specific.
Yeah, exactly. So now directors have their hands tied. I don't think so. And it's the same thing. Like I want to nail down the Android stuff. The relationship between the Android and plagiarized prepotence is like endlessly fascinating to me, and I just want to nail it down. But like, and let me tell you that would be a huge part of the third book. If I wrote another one, I want to explore that conspiracy theory.
Okay.
Because I think every Android is obsessed with the alien.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we've seen that.
And I think that part of that is that they've all seen the post-David strain. And I have to wonder if they're not like recognizing something without knowing that they are.
Something non-subconscious as such.
You're right. So one of the things that I think about a lot is I see like these AI designed struts, for example, and they don't look human. They look more like Giger drawings than, like bridge struts designed by computers. And so, those kinds of things that does kind of work. And at the same time, it creates an order that the androids might be able to see that is beyond what humans can see.
That would be a really interesting route to take. As much as I hate the David creation angle, but
I know, but like once they went with it, I was like, I can do that though. All right, if you're listening, anyone in the studio, I will absolutely make that story work. If you hire me, I can make that story work.
But I've seen loads of comments as well being like, can we get Alex and Noah together, please?
Yeah. Oh my God. Please. If any of you know Noah Hawley, right, just refer him my way. I don't care. I'll do whatever it takes to make the deal happen. So, all right. Well, I guess we should wrap it up, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, okay. We'll be going on forever. Alex, where can people find you online if they want to send you love or buy your books?
Go to Alex White Books on Twitter. That's me, Alex White Books. And then also, if you look on my Twitter page, my pinned tweet has an address for Read It Again Bookstore. And that is my local bookshop that ships almost anywhere. And like, I don't know, maybe they ship overseas. But if you email them or you call them and you say you want to buy my books, I will drive over there and sign it for you. If you say you want me to sign it to someone, I'll go sign it for you. Okay? So if you want an autographed copy, go to my Twitter bio or go to my Twitter page, look at the top pinned tweet, Alex White Books, go to Read Again Books. And that's my way of directing business to local independent bookstores while still getting to have them do all the shipping work for me. Yeah. Yeah, because otherwise I got to maintain a post office box. I got to go to the post office all the time. Like, it's no good.
Who's got time for that crap?
Exactly. Whereas I can go to the bookstore, I can sign a couple extra copies.
That's cool.
Yeah, they're great.
So, seriously, I mean, everybody listening, if you like The Cold Forge, if you like Into Charybdis, go read Alex's other stuff. I said in my review of this one, I got a kick-ass book from Alex. Alex got a fan from me that extends past Alien. And that is genuinely... I gave Salvages a go based on how much I liked Cold Forge. And I kept buying it because of how much I liked the book itself. So
that means a lot.
Give the stuff a go, especially if you really do like these Alien books.
Thank you very much.
No worries. So thank you everybody for listening. This has been Aaron Percival.
And this has been Alex White. And we commit this podcast to the flames with a glad heart.
Yeah, okay. Alien 3 before the next book. That's it. That's your lot.
See ya.